Hey everyone, welcome to FinanceRox. Today's topic is $0 balance, how to stop the I spend all the money in my checking account habit. So, as you guys are joining, I'd love it if you would share if you have any tips as well, because I have a client who is currently struggling with this, and there wasn't a lot of information online, like not a lot of tips. So, let me add in the comment here. Please share any tips or advice. Okay, so I do have a few ideas, and I'll share what I've shared with her, and then, I will share any that come up in the comments as well. So this video is for you. If you have repeatedly paid overdraft fees, if you just can't seem to keep any money in your checking account, and I know right off the bat, a lot of people will say, oh, well, if you can't keep it in there, just transfer it to savings. And I would say if you're the kind of person who can respect the money in your savings and not spend it, then, that's not really the habit that we're talking about here. And if that is your case, can you just apply the same thinking and logic of protecting that money in your savings account to your checking account? But ultimately, this is for people that are struggling to keep money in their account. So I think that this is mostly caused for two reasons. Sometimes legitimately there's not enough income, right? So it might be an income problem of, you're just spending everything that you make because you don't make enough. But the second thing is, if you have the habit of looking at your balance and then spending it. So that's the focus for the video today. And it may be a combination of both as well. Not quite enough income and also spending everything that's in there, regardless of how much is in there, right? So let's see. The other thing about moving it to your savings account, reasons I don't recommend that. Like I said, savings accounts aren't really safe. You can just transfer it back to your checking as easily as you transfer it to savings. And I do think that rating your savings is a very common problem. And in fact, I even heard that, or I saw a statistic that said about 40% of Americans have tapped into their 401ks. So, are any of our dollars safe in this scenario, right? The other reason, you get more practice building your discipline. If you actually see the money in your account and not spend it, that's going to build the discipline for you. And I think that it's like building a muscle, right? If you're not practicing, you're never going to get any better at it. And what we're really talking about here is dissociating the balance in your checking account from how much you allow yourself to spend. So in the case of a real emergency, this is another one, then the money's just already in your checking account. You don't need to go to your savings and transfer anything in. Having more than a minimum amount in your checking prevents the stress and cost of overdraft fees. So, if you're just always right at the edge of zero, the administrative overhead of, tracking what's going to hit this week, I didn't realize this was going to be one of the benefits of having, part of my emergency fund or, a fully a month ahead, 2 months ahead in my checking account, was I no longer had to worry about is my rent going to hit this week and cause it to dip low? Is this, car maintenance, I have to pay my auto insurance, once every 6 months. So if that hits and I'm, not thinking about it, I'm still good. Versus if you're transferring everything to savings, you might have an overdraft or you might have to go in and move money around. And I also think it ultimately leads to more intentional spending. So less spending just because you happen to have money. Is that a good reason to be buying things just because you looked in your account and you have money? I would say no. And certainly it's one of the criteria, right? You have to have the money in order to buy it, or it's better to have the money in order to buy it versus, credit cards. So let's get into the meat of it. How do you stop spending everything? So let's talk about the mindset of it first, because I think that a lot of the times we just have the habit of looking at it and giving ourselves permission to spend it. It's like the amount in your account equals the amount you can spend. So we really want to like break the association between those. So what do you tell yourself instead? So I always share with clients this idea that I came up with of the new zero. And a lot of people have done this. I just call it that. But calculating how much you want to always have in your checking account, like how far ahead you want to be, and then that becomes the new zero. So if 2000 is the new zero and your balance shows $500, then your actual amount available to spend would be negative $1,500. So this is like the mind game of how much money do I have to spend minus $1,500. So it's, not only not giving yourself permission to spend, but reminding yourself of, what you're wanting to have in there, what you need to have in there. And I think that's very helpful. You could do this every day. You could do this weekly. So, if you do that calculation of how much is in my balance minus the new zero and it comes up negative, that's where I would go into emergency savings mode. So this would be like, I did have a phase of my life when I was doing this, and I absolutely just ate bananas, rice, and potatoes for that time frame. And I think that really, limiting your spending to only the things that are absolutely necessary in that phase, it's kind of the only option, right? Because then it's like, well, I do actually have to buy groceries with that $500 that's in there, but I'm not going to tell myself that I have money that I can just go and spend willy-nilly. We're kind of talking about setting a threshold for yourself, because you get to decide your own thresholds for everything. You get to decide how much is your bare minimum. I think for a lot of people, we kind of learn this from our parents, or it just kind of naturally happens where zero is the threshold for like, oh, I need to stop spending, or I need to go into emergency savings mode, or fully maxed out credit card. For a lot of people, that's their zero of like, okay, I'm getting close to that. I actually need to go into like emergency savings mode. So I think that a lot of us have that mechanism. It's just artificially increasing that threshold for, what we're willing to accept as our bare minimum. And I would say once you can establish that as either not zero or not your credit card maximum available, then up it a little bit at a time. So when I first started this, I was at $200. And I remember I calculated like, oh, well, what's the bare minimum that I always want to have in the checking account? And this goes into, emergency funds, emergency savings. And I have several videos on this as well. But I calculated like what's the most likely emergency that I would want to have money in there for. And that kind of gave me more purpose and why behind having those dollars in my account and being able to respect those dollars. Because yeah, you can tell yourself all day that, $2,000 is your new zero, but if you don't really have like a powerful reason why that $2,000 is in there and important, then are you going to really respect that and be able to keep your hands off it and really be able to stop spending once you hit that threshold or near that threshold? But increasing it a little at a time. Like I went $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. I kind of just increased it $1,000 at a time until I got to a point where I felt like, or until I got to the point where I realized that I was not having any emergencies or any expenses that came up that dropped me below, where I felt comfortable. So after that point, I was like, okay, anything above, $12,000, then I'll go ahead and transfer it to savings. And I know that there's a lot of people that will say that, having 10,000 in your checking account is wasteful because you could be investing that money or earning interest on it. But I'll say I went from, bottom 10% poorest to top 10% wealthiest, top 4% for my age group. And I've always had this amount of cash. And so I think it's okay. I think that it's an appropriate, threshold to have 2 months of spending in your checking at all times. Certainly, there would be people that would disagree, but that's what I advise people to do. The next thing, how to stop spending everything in there, is to tap into your creativity and resourcefulness. So, what actually happens currently when you get close to zero or close to your credit card maximum? A lot of people I know will suddenly become very frugal, be able to stretch their dollars really far. Um, and I think that just like tapping into that sooner is a huge tip, right? So leaning into your creativity and resourcefulness during times when you have money and stretching dollars even when you have money, getting into the habit of, having those things in place. So, reminding ourselves of, 2000 is the new zero and when to like go into that mode. I think absolutely having some reminders around your some physical reminders in your environment that will help you to not just fall back into the same habit of looking at your balance and saying, "Oh, it's okay. I can spend normally." So I would say if you're checking it on your phone now, can you only check it on like your computer at home, like a desktop computer? And then, if you're only checking it on your desktop computer, having like a sticky note on your desk that reminds you that 2000 is the new zero, or anytime that you look at it, whatever your new zero threshold is, that you are remembering that, because we get caught up and can forget to to establish that. Once you have that habit of stat sorry. Once you have that habit established, then you don't need them. Like I don't need them anymore. When I look at my account, I know what my zero is, and I don't have to like remember not to spend all the money. And in fact, I've gotten to the point where it's like I'm so comfortable with my spending how it is, like it's so regular and not affected by any of my balances, whether that's checking, savings, net worth, that I trust myself that I don't really keep that close of a tab on it anymore, which is a great place to be, right? Because that's that reducing that administrative overhead of having to like check your balance every day, see what's posting, remember when your car payment is going to hit, that kind of thing. The next one, managing impulses to buy. I did a really good interview with Chris Luger from Heavy Metal Money the other day, and we went into all kinds of tips on how to manage impulse and impulsive spending. So I would recommend that. The biggest takeaway there would be of my tips, of my common advice would be to keep a purchase procrastination list. So anytime that you want something when you're in this emergency savings mode, adding it to a spreadsheet or a list somewhere of the things that you want to buy and want to budget for in the future. And a lot of people don't write it down. They're just like, "Oh, I'll remember that I want this." But something about writing it down helps me to not to buy it even more, because it's like, "Okay, I'm taking this serious. I'm taking this seriously." It's not just, trying to push my desires down. It's not just trying to push, my wants down. It's really acknowledging them and honoring them by writing them down. Now, a lot of the times I end up not buying the thing because, I'll realize after some time has passed that it really truly was just an impulse, and that, I really don't need to or want to even buy the thing. And then the things that I do end up wanting to buy, they're on the list. And, a lot of the times I'll like ask for them as gifts instead of buying them for myself. Cause like, sometimes people are like, "I want to buy you something for, the holiday. What can I get you?" And so you kind of already have some things in mind. It also helps like doing the thrift first. So this is another strategy I use for if there's something that I want, seeing if I can buy it used first. And then, if I am unable to buy it used after a while, then, I'll budget for it or, go ahead and purchase it after a certain amount of time has passed. So the last thing I wanted to say is, if you're really struggling with this and it's been an ongoing thing, I would say maybe do hire a coach for this. I have a lot of the people that have been on the channel provide personal finance coaching. I do it as well. I'll include the link for mine in the description. But yeah, hiring an accountability coach so that way, you have someone to be accountable to. And in fact, one of the things that I'm working on right now is, having that daily accountability for the client that's working on this is letting me know each morning what your balance is would be an example here. So letting me know what your checking account balance is, and then we'll do that subtraction together and, have that reminder every single day of, oh, okay, this is not money that I want to or will spend. So those are my takeaways for you guys today. A little bit of a shorter live stream, but just want to share it because it was relevant for, one of my clients right now. And I know that it's a very common problem. So hopefully that helps you guys. I will let you go. And until next time, I hope your finances rock. Bye. Okay, goodbye again. Goodbye. All right, end. All right, bye.